Alrighty, let's do a little live chat here. Let me know how let's see if I do, let's do a test here. Let me know. Okay, yeah. This is from a new notebook computer, but it's a newer notebook. I buy them used, but it's only it's like a year or two old. Little life hack is if you use Linux, like I use Linux Mint, you can buy a notebook computer that's like 5 years old, just used off of Facebook Marketplace or something. Wipe it, take Windows off of it, buy a Windows notebook. I don't know if this works. I don't know if you can actually put Linux on a Mac, but you should buy a cheap used Windows computer, anywhere from like 3, 4, or 5 years old. Wipe it, put Linux on it. It's pretty easy, and it's not very computer intensive, so you can use an old computer, save a lot of money. And Linux is a lot easier to use than people think, especially nowadays. It's very similar to the Windows experience, but I digress. All right. As always, if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. I will check questions every once in a while during the video and at the end of the video. And then also, if you have any questions, you can also just comment if you're not watching this live. Okay. So I got an email from a guy that wants to put his child on a program as autism. So I thought I would talk a little bit about autism. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about autism, huh? So, autism. So the first thing that we have to realize with autism is it's a spectrum, okay? Now this is like anything. Okay, at the end of the day, these are just words that we use to describe behavior, okay? So when someone describes a child as autistic, that could have a huge variance, okay? Autism can go all the way from a child that's literally nonverbal and cannot communicate even though they're like 10 years old, all the way to some child that's maybe behind in, like a couple grades behind in school, and they still get labeled as autistic, right? So that's the first thing we have to realize, is that autism is a huge spectrum, okay? And it's not like a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, okay? There's a huge variance with the levels of autism, okay? And that's true in regards to healing as well, okay? But let's talk about just autism in regards to heritage tissue mineral analysis and the way that we approach it and some of the things that we've observed in children with autism, okay? So first of all is obviously the variance, okay? So the first thing you have to realize with autism in children is the younger the better to get them on a program, okay? Younger the better. The reason why this is because youth is really associated with health to a certain extent, okay? So the younger someone is in general, the more energy they have to work with, okay? So children have more energy to detox, okay? So it's easier for children to detox with less symptoms than an adult, right? If you're a 50-year-old that's been living a toxic lifestyle their whole life, it can be difficult to detox, right? You're gonna need things like coffee enemas, sauna therapy, even more. Whereas a child that's like 5 years old, you just give them supplements twice a day. Okay, the diet doesn't even have to be perfect. The biggest thing is just getting the diet like 80%, and just giving them supplements twice a day, and they'll naturally start to detox. And children don't actually usually get really that many detox symptoms. Sometimes they'll need more sleep. Sometimes they'll retrace like an ear infection or something like that. Sometimes there'll be a little bit of change in mood, but not nearly as much as you would notice in an adult, for example. Okay, so younger the better. Okay, more energy to work with. Okay, that's an important thing to realize. Okay, and the younger you start a child with autism on one of our programs, the better results in general you're going to get. Okay, if you start a 2-year-old, you can get, by the time they're 5, you can get fantastic results, okay? Whereas if you're going to start like a 16-year-old who has severe autism, you'll see some, over time you'll see less and less symptoms in general, but it's gonna take longer, okay? It's gonna be more difficult because they're older. Um, in general, just the younger the better. Okay, let's see how many viewers we got here. Okay, younger the better. Okay, that's the first thing you have to realize about our programs that return to autism. Is okay, and then results can vary to a certain extent. So let's talk about the variance. Okay, so the severity of the autism. Okay, how many medals the child has, how old they are. All these things that contribute to how a child is going to respond to the program. Also, how well the child is doing the program, right? So, how well a child is being put on program. So, are they eating enough cooked vegetables? Or is the parent, mostly it's in the hands of the parent. If you have a 5-year-old on a program, obviously the main factor in how well a child is doing the program is going to be the parent. Okay. So is the parent being diligent about the diet, limiting their sweets and things like that? Is the parent giving them their supplements twice a day? Okay, and being diligent about that. All these things kind of combine to play a part in how well a child will react to the program. Okay. Other notes. So it's very rare that all of a sudden a child goes on the program and all their autism symptoms disappear. Doesn't generally work like that. How it does it usually happens in stages. Okay. But generally within a few weeks starting the program, parents do begin to see some of the symptoms be relieved. Okay. And it might be subtle at first. The child might be sleeping better. Okay. There might be less temper tantrums all of a sudden. But very rarely is it some grandiose thing where, the child is nonverbal. Let's say the child is 12 years old, been nonverbal the whole time. You put them on on the supplements, and all of a sudden they can talk. Okay, it doesn't really work like that. We do get amazing results sometimes. If you guys want to see, maybe I'll post it down below once it's done. This is done being recorded live. I'll put a link to a good friend of mine, Clark Engelbert. If you search the channel, I've actually interviewed Clark in person. He's now a practitioner. He has an Instagram account called Nutritional Analytics, and he has a post about a child on the program. I forget how old the child is. I want to say 5 to 7, somewhere around there, maybe younger. But I don't know the exact. It's a younger child, okay. And the child, I don't know if it was. I don't know if the child was specifically diagnosed with autism, but a lot of these things overlap. The child basically had failure to thrive. Okay, so that includes a misshapen skull, way behind in its development and things like that. And the skull of the child actually shifted. Okay, and it became a healthier skull. So things like this can happen. Generally, they will happen faster if the child is younger. So going back to that. It's definitely the best. You want to get the child on a program as soon as possible, okay? The younger, the better. And this even kind of goes back to prenatal care. I mean, preferably you want to get the mother on a program because that way we can kind of prevent most of these things happening in the first place, right? Because if we can nourish the mother and she can be living a healthy lifestyle and we can make sure that she's getting enough nutrients to pass on to the child and, avoid certain medical procedures that, children can get at a young age, we can, prevent this in the first place. And that kind of goes back to, there's a reason why autism rates are climbing. Okay. This isn't something that parents are making up. This isn't some new screening method where all of a sudden, people are just noticing that people are becoming more aware of it all of a sudden. That's a little bit of it, but mostly it's because a lot of the children are sick. Okay, and this is for various reasons. Okay, health of the mothers is very low in Western nations, so the mother is passing on nutrient deficiencies. A lot of it is, unfortunately, certain medical procedures. Okay, if you know what I'm talking about. The schedule for these medical procedures is the biggest it's ever been. Okay, so they're pushing this more and more on it, especially now with the certain virus. They now want children to get they want to get the children to get injected against that, along with the flu shot. Okay, you can see I have to avoid using these words because we'll get strikes on our channel, unfortunately. Okay, but there's a reason why the rates of autism are going up. Okay, that's not all in our minds. There's a reason. Okay, so that's important to realize. And the best thing is obviously to prevent it from happening in the first place, which is what you hope to do. But if you cannot, you want to get reiterating that you want to get a child on it. The younger, the better. Okay. So it usually happens in stages. Okay. So what usually happens is the child will just notice, like I said, some more subtle things, like the child will be sleeping a little bit better and things like that. Okay. And obviously it can happen faster, but in general it happens in stages. Okay. And so over the course of several years, you will notice less and less symptoms. Okay. The child might have some detox reactions, like retracing an ear infection or a sinus infection that might be contributing. But in general, it happens in stages, and it happens slower than not necessarily slower, but it's more gradual than you would think. Like, it's not this sort of like all of a sudden the child is completely normal. The child is just slowly getting better to the point where most rational parents would just say, oh, this child's not even autistic. Okay, so that's important to realize. And to a certain extent, it's all semantics. Josh Whitehall. Okay, I'll answer that later on. Just reading some of the comments. Okay. So, yeah, the younger the better, and it happens in stages. And one thing that's beautiful about hair mineral analysis is the fact that it's simple. Okay, these programs are very simple, especially when you realize like what sort of things parents are doing. Because a lot of these parents are good parents. They're looking for answers. They don't know why their child is like this. They don't know what caused it, and they're spending tens of thousands of dollars going to all these holistic doctors and naturopaths, chiropractors, etc., etc. And there's a lot of smart people out there that do various healing programs, and they can get various results. But what's nice about our programs is they're very simple. Okay, and so the diet doesn't need to be exact. Okay, so I would say if you're familiar with the nutritional balancing diet, it doesn't even need to be exact for these children. I would say like 80%, 80% of the diet. So if you don't know, our diet is it's comprised of, we want lots of cooked vegetables and lots of meat. Cooked vegetables are the most important food, followed by animal protein. Okay, but they can have grains and they can have things like raw dairy and stuff like that. Those are all excellent. But the diet does not to be. I need to reiterate that the diet does not to be exact for children. Children, they have a lot of energy to work with. They're pretty resilient. Their digestive systems aren't usually in as bad of a shape as adults. And as long as they're getting cooked vegetables, preferably like twice a day, doesn't have to be a lot of cooked vegetables. Maybe like a half their plate cooked vegetables or even less. I would say the supplements are probably more important than the diet. So supplements are more important than getting the diet exact. Okay, the diet is important. Okay, like I said, making sure they're eating. It can be difficult with some children, especially if their palate and they're kind of picky eaters. They don't like eating the cooked vegetables. But it's important to realize with these children and children in general, the diet does not need to be exact. It's far more important that you're diligent about the supplements twice a day. In my experience, that's what I've seen with my children. Okay, is that I don't have them follow the diet exactly. I don't really expect them to. They're children. Sometimes it's okay to give them a treat once in a while. It's okay, it's like if you have a wife, for example, and she's in a hurry, she doesn't have to make cooked vegetables for every breakfast. Okay, obviously the more the better, and you want to do the best you can, but life is life, and sometimes the stress, and the children can feel stress, and if you're stressed out about them not eating exactly. That can be worse than them not eating exactly in the first place, okay? So we always want to manage stress, and we always want to do the best we can, and we always want to forgive ourselves as parents, okay? And understand that we're not always going to be able to get the diet exactly, and we're just doing the best we can. But in my experience, it is more important that they get those supplements twice a day, okay? So let's say, I think it's better that they get the supplements twice a day than they do the diet exactly. So let's say you did the diet 100%, but they're not getting supplements. That's not, in my experience, that's not going to heal the child nearly as well as them doing, like, for instance, like 60% of the diet. But they get the supplements. I would say maybe even lower. I would say, like, let's say that you're doing the diet like half the time. If you're doing the diet like half the time, but you're giving your child the supplements twice a day, every day, and you're diligent about it, in my experience, that's going to be significantly more effective than doing the diet close to 100%. Okay. Why is this? I'm not sure. The supplements are quite powerful. It could be because the children are younger and they're healthier. They're more resilient. They don't need the diet quite as exact. Maybe their body can more efficiently absorb minerals because they're younger. It just seems to be the case. I would say the diet is more important with adults. Usually by the time you're an adult, you have more food sensitivities. Digestion is lessened a little bit less energy to work with. You need more of the cooked vegetables, okay? And again, that's not to say that the cooked vegetables and the meat and the diet aren't important for children. I just think it's important to note that the supplements, I think, do take priority over getting the diet exact, okay? And that's basically the only two things you need, especially if the child is like under 10, for example, or maybe I would say like pre-puberty, like 12, 13. Really just the supplements, and then maybe shoot for like 70% of the diet. That's really all they need. And even the supplements that the children get are pretty simple, right? So children usually get a CalMag, which is usually from Endomed. It's Paramin. Okay, so they usually get a CalMag. They get something for their sodium potassium ratio, which is either zinc or limcomin. Okay, and those two things are by far the most important. Okay, so this is the majority of the program. So we go back to where the supplements are a little bit more important than the diet. Some supplements are a lot more important, right? Out of all the supplements, the CalMag and then just the zinc or limcomin, depending on their NAK ratio, are by far the most important. A lot of children are in fast oxidation. Okay, so they might get a stress pack, or they might get the other one, the metabolic pack, for if you have if you're in fast oxidation with a low sodium potassium ratio. What is the name of that one? I don't remember, but just because we don't see it that often. Usually children are in fast oxidation with a low sodium potassium ratio. Okay. So usually they're going to get stress pack, or they're going to get here, let's look it up real quick. What's that? Why am I spacing? I think it's because I'm nervous because I haven't live streamed in a while. But now that I'm curious, let's just go to endomit.com. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap up the live stream, but let's go look to product catalog. SPF formula, derp. So SPF formula is another one that they might get. Usually they're not in slow oxidation. So usually, they're not going to get Megapan, although some children might get Megapan. But usually it's going to be a CalMag, it's going to be zinc or limcomin, it's going to be stress pack or SPF formula. Okay? And by far, those three are the most important. Okay? You give your child a little bit of GB3. For instance, might give a child half a GB3 per meal. You can also do the kelp. If they're not eating sardines, you might want to do some vitamin D3 and some fish oil. But by far, these two are the most important. Sorry, I was getting a call. By far, these two are the most important, followed by this one. This is the third most important. Then I would say probably the vitamin D and fish oil, then the kelp and the GB3. Children don't need the GB3 as much as adults just because their digestive systems are usually working a little bit better. But yeah, the programs are simple, right? It's these supplements plus the diet. That's basically all they need. Children, they don't need the coffee enemas as much. Usually they're hard to administer anyway. Usually younger children, they're not really ready for sauna therapy. If they're like 10 years old and over, you can give them some sauna therapy and it can help. But in general, that's all you really need. Okay. Anyways, guys, I got to wrap it up. I just want to talk a little bit about autism because I got an email about it, about a guy that wanted to put his child on a program. And this is something that's growing, right? These sort of programs for autism are sort of growing as people realize that they need to find ways to sort of like heal their children, right? Check out Clark's Instagram, Nutritional Analytics. You can see that post about the child with the skull that shifted. Fascinating stuff. Dr. Wilson also has some case studies about not developed children, failure to thrive children that have done well on the program. If you would like to do a program, you can fill out the contact form down below, or you can email me, luke@lifelabshtma.com, and I hope you can leave your comments down below, and I will do my best to answer them. And I hope to see you guys later. All right, bye-bye now.